Hi everyone, this is Dr. Paul Martin with Brilliant Life Chiropractic, and today I wanted to talk about babies and infants. You've heard me talk a lot recently about adjusting pregnant women, and that's super important and can help with all kinds of things, as I mentioned before. So look through my channel and you'll find other videos about why that's a good idea. But what do we do with these kids after they're born? Do we just leave them to the wolves? Do we just let them be on their merry way? The answer is no. Chiropractic can actually be really, really important and effective for those little munchkins. I love adjusting babies. Going to my favorite pediatric website, which is icpa4kids.org, you'll find all kinds of case studies which show resolution or reductions of symptoms related to a lot of different things that tend to trouble babies and newborns. Things like colic, asthma, allergies, ear infections can affect things like wetting the bed, nursing, latch issues, digestive troubles, pooping. I've had a number of kids who they get constipated, whether they're dealing with something or mostly formula fed, that tends to stop things up a little bit. And getting adjusted can be huge in allowing those poops to move through. It's not unusual sometimes for babies to go more than a day or two or three without pooping, but sometimes they gotta go, and getting adjusted can help with that. The biggest thing that I hear it has to do with like the biggest objection to pediatric chiropractic. It has to do with number one is people don't see a reason for it. They don't see a reason to do it, and the reason for getting a newborn adjusted is the same reason for getting anybody adjusted, and that is to help them be their best. Right? We experience stress, we experience trauma all through our lives. Getting adjusted helps us deal with that, because when you experience that stress, it can interfere with the body's ability to heal itself and to operate normally. Getting adjusted reduces that interference and allows the body to do that. Same thing happens with a newborn. I'll talk a little bit about more about that later. But the second thing is, what about safety? People often think that pediatric chiropractic is somehow barbaric, and it's so not. Pediatric chiropractic is very different than adult chiropractic, or it can be anyway. For one thing, there's almost never a real high velocity type adjustment, at least not the way I practice. The kind that can get that cracking sound. Typically, an adjustment on a newborn is like the amount of pressure you might put on an orange to just sort of indent the peel just a little bit. It's really not very much, and it's amazing the effect that can have. You feel this tension, the atlas might be a little off, and you get a little bit of pressure here, and it just kind of shifts right over, and all kinds of things can change with that. I've been getting my kids adjusted since they were 1 hour old, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was completely safe. And they're two of the healthiest kids, I swear. It's kind of amazing. But yeah, 1 hour. There's enough going on there that it made a difference. My son Ari, I know I've talked about this before, but he was totally uninterested in nursing. He wouldn't latch on. And when I checked him out, something was going on up in the neck, right up in here, which is very common after, especially a prolonged labor, which leads into like why adjust newborns. Kids we can sometimes see because of slips and falls on the playground, but why adjust newborns? Well, see, birth can be a traumatic experience. No matter how short or long it is, birth is a traumatic experience. A newborn's entire experience of their life changes in the course of anywhere from like a few hours to a day, or the pressure in the vaginal wall, the vaginal canal. That's works to squeeze them through and get them out, but that's a traumatic experience. It's actually quite good for their skull and their brain development, by the way, which is why vaginal birth is awesome and preferable to C-section most of the time, because it helps with their brain development. The pressure's on there, and so getting adjusted can actually help even with those pressures and make sure that things work the way that they're supposed to. But anyway, any sort of normal birth or C-section can create trauma through the neck and the spinal cord, especially if it's assisted, like vacuum extraction or forceps, which thankfully, hopefully they're not doing as much of anymore. But even in a C-section, there's torque and pulling and even yanking sometimes trying to get the baby out. Getting adjusted can really help with all that trauma With Ari, his labor was recorded as 20 hours, but Lael was laboring a lot longer than that, more maybe 32 or something like that. And so when he came out, he had a pretty big, good-sized cone head. But yeah, I didn't want to nurse, and I checked up in here, and sure enough, I don't remember if it was C1, C2, but upper cervical. Adjusted that, he went right to it, and then he didn't stop for 3 years. It was an immediate thing with him, and I adjusted Kira when she was an hour old too. And I can't count how many times I've adjusted my kids when they've had colds going on, immune system depressed, and get them adjusted, and it just helps them get over it faster. They do a lot better. With older kids, it's more obvious the kind of stresses they experience. They're in school, so they're sitting in chairs for longer than they probably should be. They have to carry backpacks, which, that's never good. And then add to that the social and developmental pressures. That creates stress too. The emotional stress of growing up and changing all the time. Growing pains in kids is another big one. I had a lot of pain when I was a kid. When I was 13, I was in a lot of pain, knee pain, back pain, and chiropractic kept me going until I found the way that I practice now, where it provided even more of a difference. So get adjusted. You can help them. You can help. And here's a neat thing about kids too. I know this is going a little long now, longer than I wanted it to, but kids heal faster than adults. Adults have had 20, 30, 40, 50 years to build up all this stress in their systems, and so it takes something to break that up and get them moving. But with kids, that's why newborns respond so quickly. A little bit of pressure, and then whoop, and there it goes. As they get older, they still respond so beautifully and so quickly to getting adjusted. It's kind of amazing. They haven't had the time to get really rigid in their systems. And there's also a mental aspect of they don't disbelieve. Like some people come into chiropractic and they disbelieve, or they don't think it's going to work, or they wonder. And kids they have a lot of trust and faith, and that helps them get better. I always encourage people to whatever you do to get better, believe that it will work. So kids, newborns, it's totally safe for them to get adjusted. And they can respond beautifully, and it can take care of any number of things. The number of testimonials we've gotten where kids have gotten better from a number of different things. Colic is huge. The crying for no reason is the definition of colic for more than like 2 or 3 hours. And first newborn I adjusted, she was 9 weeks old. It was my niece, and she was about to go into this colic fit, and they usually last for 2 or 3 hours. And her mom said to me, "Don't worry, it's just colic." And then 50 minutes later, as she's crying nonstop, said, "Well, is there anything you can do?" So I said, "Well, I don't know, but I'll check her out." And so I checked her out, and I made a light touch contact actually right below the clavicle up in here, releasing this pattern of tension through the front of her body, and she just sort of eased and went limp and fell asleep. Slept for 2 hours. So please give it a try. Find a pediatric chiropractic. Go to the website, ICPA4kids.org, I think, and find one. That's part of the ICPA. All right, that's all I've got for today. So remember, kids and newborns, they also deserve a brilliant life. Let it shine.